And we are finally here on location with one of my absolute heroes, a man I'm listening to talk about Native American history, activism, and issues for years on WPFW 89.3, which is a Pacifica outlet here in the Washington, D.C. area. And his show, the Nightwolf show, it airs at 2 o'clock on Fridays now, right? And it is also called the most dangerous show on the radio. I am so honored to be here with my husband, who's the cameraman, with Jay Winter Nightwolf. Mr. Nightwolf, thank you so very much for having us out here today.
I'm honored.
And having us on your beautiful property. So my first question, other than please introduce your guest here.
This is Don Wolf, D-A-W-N Wolf. Woods. He's like a brother to me. He's a Crow, Creek, Indian, and black. And this fellow sitting over here on the end is another fellow that's like my brother. His name is Ramon Grimaldi. He's Cherokee and Sicilian. And he's also the executive producer of my radio show.
Oh, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
You're the enabler.
I've said it on camera, now I'm in trouble.
So my first question, thank you all for coming out.
I'm going to do a Donald Trump. You're fired.
Thank you. No, Schwarzenegger's doing that now.
Yeah.
So the first obvious question I have to ask, why is your show called the most dangerous show on the radio?
Well, Jackie, whenever you tell the truth, the real truth about the story of the Americas, I don't like the word history because that's his story. That's not my story. It's not our story. It's not your story. That's his story. And his story has always been about conquest and being on top of everything, where we know it's not to be true. There are so many things going on in these United States, the Republic of the United States. It's not a country, it's a republic. When they came here in the late 1490s, just in what we know as the U.S., there were 112 million Indians. By 1934, they murdered all but 7,000. And now we're on the rebound, we're coming back. It's about 5-6 million. But still, that's only a drop in the bucket to what was destroyed and what was killed and what genocidal practices was used on to eliminate a people. A people that, when they came to the eastern shores of the United States, a people that were open and honest and kind and accepting, actually helped them survive, because this whole story about Thanksgiving is nothing but a lie anyway. They did not land on Plymouth Rock. They shipwrecked on that rock. And it was no got into their ducks in one of the worst winter storms ever recorded, and rode out to them, pulled them out the water, brought them to safety, fed them, and kept them, gave them a place to stay throughout that hard winter. And what thanks did they give? To start massacring us. The very first war between Indians and Europeans brought a lot of Native people into captivity, shipped off to Bermuda, and put into chattel slavery. And those were Wampanoags and Narragansett Indians from up north. And they are still a vibrant community in the Bahamas now. There was one of our elders from the Wampanoag tribe. His name is Tall Oak Regan. Tall Oak heard about these people in the islands, and about 10 years ago, he went down and visited them. And he was, to his amazement, he was surprised how they maintained their culture and the way they dressed and their identity, even though they were placed in a place that was not natural for them.
Wow, that's amazing.
So when the word dangerous come about, it's because there's danger in this country when you start to tell the truth about stuff.
Yeah.
They try to find ways to get rid of you, how to kill you. You know, if they don't kill you physically, they discredit you. And they tell lies on you. And have people believing other than the truth about who you are. So that's why the show is codenamed The American Indian's Truth, the most dangerous show on radio. So I guess that answers your question. I hope it does. If not, we can go further.
Oh, that answers one question.
Okay.
I have several more.
Okay.
So you are also a member of, or a member of the advisory board, are you still, of the Progressive Democrats of America?
Yes.
Now, we recently found out that it was Progressive Democrats of America that convinced Bernie Sanders to run, which kind of explains why he decided to back the Democratic candidate. Okay. But before Bernie Sanders ran his campaign, he did something that other candidates didn't do, I thought. He spoke to Native American issues on the campaign trail. He included Native American issues in his platform. Do you see that happening with other candidates running now, since Bernie isn't a candidate anymore, very sadly?
Well, yes, it is a very sad thing. It's a sad commentary. I supported Bernie. Donald Trump is not talking to Indians. He's not talking to immigrants. He's not talking to people that happen to be believers in Islam. He's not talking to women, not in a good way. In other words, I feel that he's a clown. The only thing that's missing is the 3 rings.
Right.
Excuse me. Hillary Clinton is a big question. It's a big question mark. The true facts about why Obama got elected. Because in South Dakota, North Dakota, and other parts of Indian country, it was a native vote that put him over the top. And he went out to South Dakota, to the Crow Nation, and they adopted him and gave him an Indian name called, Black Eagle? Yeah. And Obama has been good to Indian people. I would dare to say that Obama has done more for Native people than all of his predecessors combined in just his 8 years. He brought about the yearly tribal summit with tribes and leaders were brought to the White House. I attended some of those summits. And I have the greatest respect for him. However, there are some flaws there too. And I know we're going to get into that in a little while. I'd like to get my brother here to give his views on that question.
Yes, please. Do you see Native American issues addressed in the candidate that's the obvious no today?
It would be something if any of them had that come into their peripheral, because Americans are taught, as I said before, to say that we don't exist, those issues are not that important. And I don't think Americans can go any further to understand the distinctions between Native issues and Black American issues.
Right.
And that's some of what I think about it.
Ramon?
Well, the thing I will say, and I'll even address it as far back as Bernie, which I supported him also, and am, quite melancholy about the election right now. But even as Bernie's part of it, there is even only so far that he was willing to go. And it was because, as you say, that started him to run in the beginning. But only so far he will go. I'm sure so far that Hillary Clinton will go for the simple reason, true recognition of us and what is done, who we are, what we represent. If you have to truly recognize one thing, and we even as Native Americans have to recognize this. We can't play the victim card. This belongs as a tenant because this is ours. We're not victims. We happen to be your landlord. You just have to recognize that and treat us as such. And Hillary is not going to do it. We know Donald Trump is not going to do it. Right. And even Bernie Sanders, as great as he was, he could not do it because the whole paradigm shift that it would take to really turn America to where it needs to be, to understand that in the title of who we are, Native Americans means, okay, you're Native, you're first. Right. So everything stems from you, and America's not going to do that, which we tell that story, and that's what makes the show the most dangerous show on radio. It's dangerous to the entire structure of America because it's a truth about America that they don't want to hear.
And I like to add something in there too. If you stop and really think about it, to Bill Clinton's credit, I will say this, that when he was first elected, he invited the tribes to the White House. Out on the line, he had issued a government-to-government relationship because if you go into the U.S. Constitution, you'll see that it was supposed to be a government-to-government relationship because we were sovereign and we're still sovereign. And there's a lot of questions about how they handled that over the last 500 years. If you're a sovereign nation, then no other nation can tax you. We're forced to pay taxes. Our lands, our tribal lands, the little bit that we have left of all that we had in the first place, the land is held in trust by the Department of Interior. Why would you want us to trust you when everything that was done to us was sanctioned by the U.S. government? You are a part of the U.S. government, So this thing about land and trust is a bunch of bull as far as I'm concerned. And that's going to get us into some other conversation about what's happening now in North and South Dakota.
Absolutely, that's right. And that's, since you brought up what's happening in North and South Dakota, a lot of people are joining protests now at the standard, protesting the back-end pipeline, what's called soda pipeline. The folks that don't sell pipelines, that they haven't paid attention that there are other pipelines being built too. So outside of the other native tribes that are joining the Standing Rock tribe out there are other people who are mostly progressive, environmentalist kind of people. That's why they're joining the protest, because they're protesting the environmental impact of the pipeline. Outside of the environmental issues, what are the other issues that this pipeline and those like it on native land being built? What other issues affecting Native Americans are a problem with these kinds of constructions?
Well, I've been talking about that Bakken reserve for years on my show. They discovered that the Bakken oil reserve is the largest oil reserve in the world.
Really?
Of clean, sweet petroleum oil.
Really?
Yes. And that petroleum oil requires next to nothing for processing and made into fuels. It's a light oil. The biggest problems that we have with that particular pipeline is that they want to run it under the Missouri River and other major rivers out here. And we're challenging it as Indian people and all of our other non-Indian people that have joined forces with us, is that this would be a tragedy if we ran that thing under one of the rivers and there was a break in the line.
Right.
Then there would be no drinking water, nothing that you can use. on the Pine Ridge Reservation, there is also an aquifer that people cannot drink from because the water has been tainted with uranium mill tails. And that's been for almost 20 years. You can't use that water. You can't drink that water.
Wow. 20 years?
20 years. Every year they are so benevolent to give tribes money. These are recognized tribes. Let me give you the difference between a federally recognized tribe and a state recognized tribe and a non-recognized tribe. Federal recognized tribes are composed of Indian tribes that they want to be Indians. The government said these are Indians, okay? That's just like whenever you go to watch a movie about cowboys and Indians or about Indians. They have a stereotype. Right. Light, damn near white, long braided hair. But they never looked at Indian. When they first came here and took on the shores, everything, all about African blood, no. You can go and look at any of the photographs of the past chiefs of tribes. Some of those guys are almost as black as the cars we drive. You know, the tires
I've seen it.
So this whole thing about trying to make Indians look like European descendants is a fallacy. When they had boarding schools, they sent our children off to boarding schools. They kidnapped our children. Sometimes took them 3,000 miles away. And a lot of those children didn't come back home because they were murdered by the priests and the nuns in these schools. And there was a lot of pedophilia going on. They said, kill the Indian and save the man. So what the hell does that mean?
Right, I remember reading that.
You know what that means? It's turn them into little white people. Cut their hair, change their clothes to European style garments, teach them English, take their names from them, and on a blackboard, here are new names for you. You pick your new name. You know, Indians weren't named Joseph or Michael or any of that. You know, we had our own name. Those that submitted to the will of the U.S. government, they allowed 627 of the tribes to be. What does that mean? That all you're going to get is some commodities every month. They're going to filter a little bit of money to the tribes, and in a lot of cases, the tribal governments, the chiefs of the tribes are crooks anyway. They take the money and put it in offshore accounts, and the people never get the services that the money was intended for. There was a statement that white people made when they first got over here: "We will take care of you. Just give up. We will take care of you." Well, I take that literally. We will take care of you. You open your mouth about this, we will take care of you. You'll turn up missing or somewhere dead. And these genocidal practices started 500 years ago, and they continue even today. A state-recognized tribe is a tribe that has finally got recognized by a state. Are there any great benefits to it? No. Other than you can say, I'm a state-recognized Indian. So what the hell does that mean? You could take that and I guess $1.27 and go to 7-Eleven and get a cup of coffee. And then you got the non-recognized people, and they're usually the darker Indians that they don't want to have anything to do with.
They who, the state and the federally recognized tribes?
Yeah.
Really?
The state and the federal government. And in some cases, some of the federally recognized tribes. And I know if they see this, they're going to be mad at me because I don't care. I'm telling the truth, you know. If it wasn't so, then why did the Choctaw kick out Choctaw freedmen? If it wasn't so, why did the Cherokee freedmen, the Cherokees fight so hard to kick out the Cherokee freedmen? The freedmen were black folks that had been a part of the tribe before there was even a Cherokee tribe of Oklahoma, or nation of Oklahoma. When the Cherokees was on the East Coast, they had intermarried with us. They were our families. But you let this white boy come in, then all of a sudden he's going to tell you if you are Indian or not. He's going to set up something called the blood quantum. You got to have a certain amount of blood to be an Indian.
So that's pretty much the same thing as the one-drop rule.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think, how much blood do you have to be white?
That's a good question.
Yeah, think about it, you know?
That's a good question.
And then you got other Indians that they don't recognize. The people that come from south of Texas, they're not Latinos. There's no country named Latin.
That's true.
They're not Hispanic. That word came from, you see, when they came here, they went south, the Spanish, the Portuguese. We got the British, the French, the Germans, the Swedes, and all of those other folks, and the Dutch. But those who went south, they forced those people to speak Spanish. And you want to know where Spanish came from? That's his pain that they put upon those people. His pain, Hispanics. Yeah.
Wow.
And our brothers from down there, sisters from down there, begin to wake up and smell the coffee on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's a big mess.
It is a big mess.
It's a 500-year mess.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of people who were taught in American public schools, like I was, and who don't know anything about the treaties, because all we learn in American public schools are Thanksgiving and Pocahontas and what was his name? The one that the white guy that she married, John Smith, and yeah. So
her name was not Pocahontas. Her name was Matoka, and she was a part of the Powhatan Confederacy in Virginia. And the Powhatans had captured a lot of the white guys that were fighting against them, and they stole Matoka from her father.
From her father, that's right.
Took her out on a ship and kept her out there, where every one of those sailors had their way with her.
Oh my God.
Yes. And then the promise was, his name was Wahu Shinakawa. He was the chief of the Powhatan Confederacy. He said, I will release your men if you release my daughter. He lived up to his end of the bargain. He never saw his daughter. He died from broken heart.
Of course, yeah.
And then, of course, they end up forcing her to marry this crook, this fool, and took her back to England with them, and she actually died in England.
Right.
So her name was not Pocahontas. Her name was Matoka.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
So do you see why he hosts the most dangerous show on radio? Because from what I understand, your show is the only radio show on FM on the East Coast that focuses on Native issues.
Only one east of Mississippi.
No one east of the Mississippi that focuses solely on Native American issues. That's WPFW 89.3 FM in the Washington, D.C. area. Don't worry if you don't live in D.C., WPFW.org. You can listen to them online, you can listen to the archives. I highly recommend. Okay, so let me go back to something one of the protests that struck out to me, because someone asked me about it. Several people asked me about it. He said to the police officers, you all know this is wrong. This is treaty land. This is treaty land. You know this is wrong. And several people asked me, several people on Real Progressive's page asked, what is treaty land? So explain for us what treaty land is. Why is that important?
Well, when they were over here killing us, when they first came over, they made these agreements with Indian tribes and Indian communities, and they called them treaties. Now, treaties, according to the United States Constitution, is supposed to be the supreme law of the land.
Right.
But there were 627 treaties made with Indian people. They were designed to steal land. And all 627 of these treaties have been abrogated. Every one of them.
Not one of them has been honored.
No.
None of them have been upheld. 625 treaties that the United States government has made with Native people. None of them have been upheld.
They forced these treaties on our people. You know, they backed us up against the wall, and they continue to kill us. And the tribal chiefs that made these treaties, they only did it because they were tired of seeing their people murdered. You know, as a way of protecting the people. Treaties, please. I got a friend that lives in Boston. He's a member of the Condemnation of Oklahoma. He's a black Indian. He has a great-great-grandfather by the name of Mitchell Serry, who was one of the original treaty chiefs, that they made a treaty with him. He was promised land in Oklahoma if he gave up all that land in Nebraska.
Wow.
He never got to see that land. He died. And then they tried to take it back, but my friend Earl has found the treaty, and he's been fighting for 3 years against the Interior Department. Because the land that Mitchell Serry was promised, you heard of Atlantic Richfield Oil?
Absolutely. From Jarrett, Virginia. Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, that's where Atlantic Richfield's largest refinery is sitting on Mitchell Serry's land.
Out of here.
Yep, baby. Yeah.
So how much of native land are we talking about that, in your estimation, how much of native land are we talking about that is literally a gold mine in oil and other minerals that
every piece of native land has monetary value to which under it. Every piece. If it's not gold, silver, oil, it's asbestos, it's coal. Have any realized any of this money? No. Will they? I don't think so.
Never? You don't think they will?
No.
So
not as long as I'll continue to trust the white man's word. He has no word. He has no honor. You know. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to say that all white people are bad. They're not. We have friends, close friends, that just happen to be white, whatever that is. They weren't white when we were. They were German and Spanish and whatever. One of the white guys thought way back then that, we need to control it. So we're white.
That's right.
But to get down to the thing that on all our land, every year, there's gold and then there's hills. I guess you've heard that before.
I absolutely heard that before.
So there's a reason why they won't relent. There's a reason why they won't give back what they stole. There's a reason why they won't share. You know, it's all about the dollar. And I'm looking at this fool that calls himself a president candidate, Donald Trump. Please, give me a break. You know, this man is, he's got all of these properties throughout the United States and everywhere else, but he's in $650 million worth of debt.
Yes.
You know, so.
How many bankruptcies?
Oh,
4?
Yeah.
4 or 5 bankruptcies?
Every time he gets backed into a corner and he doesn't want to pay people, he declares bankruptcy.
That's what he does. Yeah,
so this whole judicial system in America is designed to what? Protect those with money.
Right. That's right.
Here's a man.
Yeah.
Like the treaties and money. Best I know from Alaska, the name of the tribe in Alaska, I think so.
Yeah, they think that.
Well, there's money from the company. I think there's another truth there. The biggest thing about it is that there's this horrible circle that moves in which the individuals in the tribe are getting paid a lot of money, thousands of dollars, and that money finally back to hands of funds. And it's done through a cycle of alcoholism and incarceration. And then you put somebody into the system of money here, and you don't educate them. You're like clay.
Right.
And that's one of the dark sides of the treaties. The treaties, they're like this, and the treaties are much designed the way that we perceived hundreds of years ago how the whites who came here viewed God. God was a commodity, and you needed him, you put him here, and when you didn't, you put him that way. Right. So the treaties had that inside of them, and things that Nightwolf talked about and other things that you've read, that's underneath of it. That spirit is underneath of it, and it creates one of the major contributions that goes into the high suicide rates that you find on the tribes all across.
They have the highest, native youth have the highest suicide rates of any other people in America.
Yeah, it's like 82% compared to, I think, the general population.
Yeah. And if I want to say something about what John Wolf said about money going back. You know, there's a song I remember. You guys probably remember too. Yeah. It's Ernie Ford, man. You lose 16 done. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt.
That's right.
I owe my soul to the company store. Yeah.
And then that was right before that part, which shows how they came, the conquerors, and wanted to inject their own religion. Because it's, you load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't call me because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
That wasn't there's not a real wolf out here. That's his ringtone, which is the coolest thing in the world.
You're talking to him.
I know you all are asking questions on the live stream. We will get to questions you, but I just really hope you're enjoying this conversation, because I sure am, and I know my cameraman is back there. So you mentioned something that I wanted to touch on before I forget it. You said that the tribal leaders agreed to these treaties because they were tired of seeing their people killed.
Yes.
All right, so I was thinking about the Native American struggle in relation to sort of the black struggle. And I was thinking about how I look at our generation of young black revolutionaries, and how it seems like our older generation of revolutionaries just kind of got tired. And I kind of started thinking, and my husband helped with some of the history because I didn't remember all of these, the AIM movement, the American Indian movement, and how they were considered militant. You know, and militant is a bad word in the United States vernacular, but the resistance actions that they took in the late 60s and the early 70s, like the occupation of Alcatraz, standoff at Pine Ridge, Mount Rushmore, which I didn't remember. You remembered that one, and the occupation of the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Yeah.
So, when do you think that that spirit of militancy and activism has it waned in Native people? Has it gone away? What do you feel about? How do you think about that?
Well, first of all, let me tell you something about the American Indian movement. Out of the resistance and the militancy and the heart to stand up against this beast that we all feel that they want us to be prey to. Everything that Indians got since the 1970s, anything positive, is because of their actions. They didn't have gaming, they didn't have casinos, but casinos are not the panacea. It doesn't heal all.
Right.
But they were able to, after so many years, stand up and feel proud about how they were, and started resisting and started telling the truth. And I know a lot of the guys that were part of that takeover here still live in. It's Chief Billy Tyack of the Piscataway Nation. Dennis Banks has been a guest in my house. Russell Means, and Clyde Bellicourt, and Vernon Bellicourt. All of these guys, they were in a lot of Indian communities. They were portrayed as being thugs. They weren't thugs. They were just not taking any mess anymore.
Right.
And a lot of things that came out of it good, as the commodities, which is no more than that welfare food that they don't want, that they feed to Indians, they feed to black people. If it wasn't for AIM, a lot of stuff would not have been accomplished for Indian people. Russell Means, before he died, he was a friend of mine. He actually went and testified before Congress on how Indians were being treated. And he got all over John McCain's case, and he didn't know how to take it, you know? But the one thing they fear the most about Indians is the same thing they feared about black people. Learning how to speak and read their European language. Can't teach them nothing.
That's right.
They're going to come back and use it on us. Well, we have effectively used it on them, as well as our black brothers and sisters. And folks need to recognize that there's power in education.
Amazing
you
power.
know. It's nothing wrong with going to school. It's nothing wrong with getting a degree. But it's what you do with it afterwards.
Right.
Do you conform to the man's plan? Or do you stand tall and seek for your people? You know, as I have so many friends and people that I've met over the last 16 and a half years that I've been on the radio, and even before that, I formed an organization in 2010 called NCBA, the National Black Men, and we came together in 2014. We did it at Plymouth Church in D.C., Reverend Hagler's church.
That's our church,
a
too.
good friend of mine. He allowed us to have it there, but it was just standing only. There was about a couple thousand people standing outside because 6 bus loads came from Atlanta. 3 bus loads came out of New England. 2 bus loads came out of California. And I tell you that black people with Indian blood and Indian people with black blood were able to sit together and not feel marginalized or subjugated.
Right.
And they were actually there to see who their family was. Because the black American Indian is a very large family, very large family. Somewhere between 75 and 85% of all black people that were brought here and enslaved, their descendants have native blood.
Really? That high percentage?
Yes. And somewhere between 40 to 55% of those people that call themselves white have either black or and Indian blood. You know, so they need to wake up and smell the roses too, but as long as they can continue to hide behind that extremely light pigmentation in their skin and feel comfortable with where they are, you know, they talk about white privilege. Well, I don't honor white privilege. I don't care anything about white privilege. You know, they got the upper hand in education, they got the upper hand in medical, they got the upper hand in almost everything else, economic. Because they have perpetrated fraud against Indian people. And let me all this. Alexander VI issued a decree called the Papal Bull.
The Papal Bull, yes.
The Papal Bulls told European people that if you go anywhere in the world and you should meet people who don't look like you, don't act like you, don't think like you, that refuse to submit to and convert to the Roman Catholic Church, then you have, now this is a pope, right?
That's right.
He said you got the divine right.
That's right.
To kill them and take everything they got from them, provided that you give 10% back to the Roman Catholic Church. You know, black folks talk about racism in America. It didn't start in America. It came out of the Vatican. The same thing that they did to us when they came here, they went into Africa and did the same thing in all other parts of the world.
That's right.
And they did it with impunity. You know?
Yeah.
So you want to know why it's the most dangerous show on the radio?
Why? Just so you can look this up yourself, folks. Papal Bull, P-A-P-A-L-B-U-L-L. I know it sounds strange, but it's an actual document.
Yes, it is.
And yes, I will provide links for all of this information when I get back, when we finish with this video.
Well, I got a good friend here. He's like my brother.
Yes, that I am.
Do you still suffer with the guilt, though?
Yeah, it's ingrained. I mean, they teach you because, okay, let's face it this way. And this shows, again, the monetary roots of the Catholic Church. There was a scandal back in maybe about 75 years ago, and it went through quite a few years, where if you were a Catholic in the United States, and actually people like John Kennedy and his family and a few others were hooked up in this scandal, you could pay the Cardinal of Boston and the Cardinal of Chicago. You could pay for what they call indulgences, which means you bought forgiveness for sins or divorce. Where if you you can indulge. Yes. Okay. Here. The Pope is after. You could pay indulgences and get forgiven of sin.
Wow.
Now, so you have to have guilt causation. We all who are Christians, Baptists, whatever. There are no guilt in the Catholic religion. You would not go to confession, which is one of the sacraments, because there would be no guilt. Right. And you wouldn't have to pay to light a candle. You wouldn't have to put money in that basket. Again, it goes back to their monetary roots. But then you want to talk about racism, and I heard you talk about this is something fun. You talked about the one-drop rule.
Yeah. And
this notion of white, it is a relatively new thing. What I am is I'm Italian, black Cherokee. Now, in Italy, if you call an Italian man white, you will get your cap snapped. You will get beat quick.
Really?
But when they get here, they want to be part of whatever the dominant culture, as we say, the going thing.
Right.
So you adopt being white.
Right.
Because that is what is said to be the dominant or going thing. And you remember quite a while ago, like in polite Charleston, South Carolina company, in polite white Atlanta company, and all down through the South. Everybody wanted to tell you, oh, you know, I'm a descendant of Thomas Jefferson.
Yes.
And everybody stuck their chest out and thought that was such a great thing. Right. Until they found out he didn't have any children by his white wife. He only had children by Sally Hemings. So now, according to the one-drop rule, I can look at you, shake your hand, and say, hello, cousin. And then all of a sudden, you notice that disappeared because everybody's like, uh-oh, well, no, we're not going to talk about that anymore. Just like they don't want to talk about the fact that, yes, they do have native blood. Right. They don't want to talk about that.
Exactly.
They'll talk about it when it's convenient. They'll show up at a powwow, white as snow, and say,
no,
with a German name.
No, they don't do it.
No. But let me tell you this. I've heard this so many times. My great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess.
Yes.
I want to know, who the hell was the king? You know. Please.
And to your point about claiming Jefferson, my family name is Jefferson. So, and we are from Jarrett, Virginia, down there in Powhatan County.
Right down there.
So, and the other side of my family are Tylers. So, if we really want to talk about who belongs to whom and whose heritage and lineage, that's a whole nother conversation.
But then, I mean, the whole thing is just an insidiously woven cloth.
It is.
It all ties together into one thing for Native Americans. It ties into the fact of this land. Every question you have asked so far is tied to what we're sitting on right now.
Absolutely.
When you talk about, and I said, we are the landlords, but we just have not actively claimed it as natives. And you asked about the pipelines and everything else. Well, the problem goes back to that lie even that they told about for $24 worth of beads, they bought Donald Trump's Manhattan. That is a lie. The problem with the lie is the way that Native people look at the land. Right. It is our grandmother. So how could you sell your grandmother?
Right. We were just talking about that the other day.
We don't understand the concept. We don't understand it now. We didn't understand it then. You're talking about pipelines and trenching beneath the earth. You'd never see a true Native do anything like that. Yes, we do have land rights. And yes, there are things under the ground that are valuable. but it's antithetical to everything that we are to dig down in there, take it and commodify it and make money out of it, because you're essentially taking your grandmother's kidney and putting it on the open market, and we don't understand that concept.
Wow.
But if you really want to take it for a route that's good, the environmental issue, that's another reason we don't like oil pipelines, because the oil is going to be burned, hydrocarbons are going to be released, it's going to poison our grandmother and the air we breathe. But now here's the thing. Louisiana and Mississippi are underwater right now.
That's right.
Parts of Oklahoma and the far west have no water. How come you can build a pipeline from Canada down to refineries in Texas and Louisiana? How come you can have an entire network like a grid all through the country and pipe, again, hydrocarbons for sale? But there's water here. Build pipelines and pump the water. You could relieve the people in Louisiana in 2 days and pump that water out west where they need it. They'll tell you it's too expensive, but it wasn't too expensive to build the consolidated American pipeline. And what's happening? The people that are getting robbed of water the most are Native people.
Yes.
We get robbed of the water every day. They use it for their industry and just let us die. You think there's a problem in Detroit with water? Like Jay said, go out in Indian country and find out how there's benzene in the water, and that's why our native cancer rates are so high.
Yes.
Find out how much there's uranium and different radioactive isotopes are in there, and the mines are still, they abandoned them and left them open, and the dust blows through, and we have radioactive inhalates that increase our cancer rates. It's because of what they do to our grandmother, and we still can't relate to that today. And you better look out, because Minister Farrakhan said it best. Keep doing those things, and keep coming against me and against decent, innocent people, and see if you don't reap the wrath. And look at what is happening since he said it before 10/10/15.
I'm so glad you brought that up. But you go ahead
and the other thing too, you know, I remember my grandfather, my mother's father, down in South Carolina. We had some of the sweetest, nicest water that came up out of white sand streams, you know, springs. And Grandpa told us one day, he says, you know, one day you're gonna have to pay for this.
Wow. The wisdom of our elders, right?
Why do we have to pay for something that the Creator gave us? It's the white man's greed.
It is the white man. It is absolutely the white man's greed. Yes.
There's following what they said about the land, there's something fundamental in American thought that is not injected into education. But during colonial times, they wrote this down. The natives here, we were all punished because we could not see land as property.
Right. That's right.
And that's a fundamental thing to understand about all of this. That was the sin. We did not see land as property.
And you're being punished for that. Generations and generations and generations.
And Nightwolf knows, and there's an elder up on top of the world in England, Ananga. And Ananga, in ceremony, I've been on ceremony with him. But one of the things that he points out, Uncle said that, describing the thinking, he was talking about the thinking of the spirit of the white man here. And he said it's the only place where the people here kill their grandchildren to feed their children.
Oh my God.
That's how this is.
Oh my God.
This is what we're wrestling against. Because when you're dealing with Native people, politics, all the other stuff, that's there. You're talking about spirit and ceremony.
Right.
And their spiritual powers.
We were taught that you always leave things that are for your next generation. They don't care about your generation. All they care is about $1. Now, I would like to pose a question to all of these white millionaires and billionaires. After you have oil out of the ground in the last bit of coal, where do you live?
Wow.
What will you survive on? You know, all this mess about we're going to Mars. Well, I wish I'll go today. Just go now. Please. You know, leave us the hell alone. You know? As a matter of fact, I'll even stand there on the launching pad and point which way to go. Don't come back.
We'll be the Bon Voyage committee.
Oh yeah.
So
but you know, like I said, all white people ain't bad. You know?
Right.
You know,
And
like,
all Indians are good.
Just like all Indians are good and all blacks ain't good.
Look.
Let me tell you something. I know some Indian people, and I hope y'all watching the ones that stayed at my house and stole my jewelry. Okay. The ones from South Dakota that stayed at my house.
Hey, Don, let's go in the house now.
for 2 months because you didn't have any place to stay with your wife and your family and your kids.
And
left with my 2 leather coats that I had for 20 years that I love.
Oh,
you know,
it's getting real now.
Yeah, well, you know, I got that's okay. I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that go. But I do want my jeans back that you stole and had the red flannel line in it because it gets cold in here. We got them all in our family.
You brought up an issue that I want to close on this issue. Your relationship with Minister Farrakhan. I listened to the last show where you interviewed him before the Justice or Else March. Yes. We were at the Justice or Else March. We were so privileged to have been there, and we were so happy to see the representatives of the tribe. The represented on that march, and I'm so happy to see the videos on YouTube of Minister Farrakhan going up and them asking him, you know, what can we do to help you? And the Native youth, you know, coming back to him and saying, well, what can we do to help you? So talk a little bit about, one, your relationship with Minister Farrakhan, and two, answer that question for us. What can we do to help each other?
Minister Louis Farrakhan has been a friend of mine since he first came back to resurrect the Nation of Islam. When he spoke at the Howard Theater in the 70s. I am not a Muslim. I'm not a Christian anymore. I just believe in the way that we were taught to pray to the Creator. But friendships step beyond, far beyond whatever your religiosity is, your thinking of philosophy is. It steps beyond all of that. And when he was here at the Howard Theater, somehow I slipped into the position of being in charge of the security there. He stayed at the Harambe house. It used to be the Harambe house. And he never forgot me. I never forgot him. And when he started to reach out to Native America, he had heard about my radio show. So he sent his granddaughter, Yanazdaha, who was a black Lakota Indian, to find me and asked me if I would speak. But prior to that, I asked for an interview. He granted me an hour and 15-minute interview. And when he walked in the room, we embraced because we're friends, we're brothers, just like these guys are, just like your husband is and you are. And the first thing I said to him, Mr. Minister, I have a list of questions. Would you like to look over? He said, aren't we friends? Yes. He said, I don't need to look at those damn questions. He said, I'll answer anything you ask me. I said, really? He said, yeah. You asked me.